My name is Brian Worrell, District 4 City Councilor, and I'm the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Ways and Means. Today is May 1st, 2025. It is 10:11 a.m. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Fios Channel 964. The Council's budget review process will encompass a series of public hearings beginning in April and running through June. We strongly encourage residents to take a moment to engage in this process by giving testimony for the record. You can do this in several ways. 1, attend one of our hearings and give public testimony. You will take public testimony at the end of each departmental hearing and also at 2 hearings dedicated to public testimony. The full hearing schedule is on our website at boston.gov/council-budget. You can give testimony in person, here in the chamber, or virtually via Zoom. For in-person testimony, please come to the chamber and sign up on the sheet near the entrance. It will be taken at the beginning of this hearing following the panelist presentation. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. For virtual testimony, you can sign up using our online form on our Council Budget Review website or by emailing the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov or by emailing Karishma Chauhan at boston.gov. That's KARISMA.CHOUHAN at boston.gov. You will receive the Zoom link and your name will be added to the list. When you are called to testify, please state your name and affiliation and/or residence and limit your comments to a few minutes to ensure that all comments and concerns can be heard. The second way you can testify is email your written testimony to the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov. And the third way to testify is submit a 2-minute video of your testimony through the form on our website. For more information on the City Council budget process and how to testify, please visit the City Council's budget website at boston.gov/council-budget. Today's hearing is on dockets number 0822 through 0830 and docket number 0844. FY26 budgets for the Department of Innovation Technology and the Public Educational Governmental Access and Cable-Related Fund. These matters were sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on April 9, 2025. Today, I'm joined by my council colleagues in order of arrival, Councilor Flynn and Councilor Durkin. I would like to now turn it over to the panelists to introduce themselves and to get into the presentation. The floor is now yours.
Kerry Jordan, Chief of Staff here in the Department of Innovation and Technology.
Hi, I'm Santiago Garces. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the City of Boston.
I am Brian Donahue. I'm the Chief Digital Equity Officer and the Director of Broadband and Cable.
I'm Sheila Lee, Director of Operations.
Thank you. The floor is now yours.
Hi. Great. Thank you again for having us here today. We would like to share with you some of the work that we've done in the past year and our request for funding for the next year so that we can continue doing the work that helps the city move forward. I have the immense privilege of representing the Innovation and Technology Cabinet and the work that our team does to support our city. So just what we're about to share and whatever credit is worth is due to them. So we wanted to share with you briefly where are we coming from? What are some of the issues that we're trying to work through? Some trends and strategy around how is it that we're trying to make sure that we're delivering excellent government services, but also doing it in a way that is financially responsible, in a way that is making sure that we're good stewards of the technology that we're entrusted with. And also share with you some updates on existing projects and work streams that we know that are of interest to the council, because you have asked us about these things, and then just our request for funding to continue those projects. So where are we coming from? Our department, our cabinet is entrusted of creating better experiences, and we partially do that by leveraging technology that enables our city departments and agencies to connect with the public. But we also know that for people to be able to participate in those digital experiences, they need to be able to connect with affordable and reliable internet connectivity with devices that meet the needs for what they're trying to do, and the skills and the confidence that they're able to do the things that they need to do in a way that is safe and effective. So this past year, we conducted a digital equity survey that really allowed us to understand with much more granularity and with a fair amount of rigor what are the kinds of gaps that different community members experience. And the findings are consistent with information that we've shared with the council and with other assessments, but again, it gives us a little bit more a clearer understanding of what the remaining gaps are. So the majority of people in Boston, good news is that they're connected, they have home internet, and they have access to computers, and they have access to the skills that they need. But about 24% of respondents concerned still expressed concerns with affordability. 25% of respondents reported low internet connectivity speeds. 47% of respondents expressed interest in digital skills. And we found out that there's particular groups that are experiencing these gaps at a higher rate than others. So seniors, veterans, public housing residents, and Latin American residents or residents with Latin American descent were the least likely to express confidence in their digital skills. And we know that the issues around performance and affordability tend to concentrate around people that live in affordable or public housing, people that need government assistance to be able to carry their lives, and formerly incarcerated individuals. So I think that this is really helpful for us to know how is it that we should be driving resources to try to connect these people. And this is a teaser. This is we're working with support of the state and some consultants and putting together a full-fledged digital equity plan. But some of the things in anticipation of the plan that we wanted to share are strategies around how is it that we are able to bring affordable connectivity to affordable housing. Obviously, the people that are struggling to be able to pay the bill when it comes to housing are also struggling to pay things like internet connectivity. Expanding free Wi-Fi in transit hubs and affordable housing. Promoting connectivity programs that are offered by the telecommunications providers. On the devices side, improving and expanding access to public computer labs. A lot of community members, sometimes they don't feel that they need to have a computer at home. They might like to access it in a public space, but making sure that those computers are reliable, that are secure, they're in good operating condition. Working, and thanks to the action of the council enabling us to do this, being able to refurbish devices that the city uses and making sure that the low-income families are able to access those, and potentially expanding that approach with other partners as well. Expanding and extending the long-term lending program, which was an innovation that was launched in partnership with the Boston Public Library of enabling access to computers to low-income residents. And then obviously all of this work is nothing if we are not working with the community partners and the organizations that know how to reach these communities. So supporting those community organizations to make sure that there's training and resources available, that we continue to sustain our digital navigators program, and that we continue to make sure that not only are people connected, but that they have the skills and resources to be safe and at the cutting edge, that hopefully they're able to participate as we're having important discussions around governance of artificial intelligence, that those residents that probably would have been left for last would be at the forefront of being able to understand and advocate for whatever position they have. So this is a lot of work that both our digital equity team, but also our infrastructure and network team that work very closely. And everything that we do and do it is the result of close work between different teams. Based on feedback and communications that we received both from the council and also in collaboration with the Equity Cabinet and Economic Opportunity and Inclusion, we started exploring the possibility of expanding wicked-free Wi-Fi in hubs where there's high concentrations of commuters, especially commuters that we believe might not have access to data. So this is the prototype where we brought some rigs to be able to test how is it that that connectivity might work out in Nubian Square and in Maverick Square, and then we are also contemplating expanding to other locations. So that's broadly, again, some of the work that we've been doing in understanding what are the gaps that exist for people to be able to participate with the city from a digital perspective. I want to share with you some of the things that we're doing. Again, we have DOIT does a little bit of everything for everybody. So we are in the business of supporting the public libraries, the public schools, the police department, our veteran affairs office, equity. Everybody uses to some extent some DOIT resource, but we've been trying to change the way that we do business so that we could do it in a way that delivers a better experience, but we're also being better stewards of our financial resources, especially knowing that we're going into times of uncertainty. So foremost, we've been working, again, with a number of different teams, our cybersecurity teams, infrastructure teams, and our operations team and others, to create standards and centralizing the purchasing of computers. One of the things that we've been able to do is standardizing to one device per person, and that has allowed us to surface that there's about 400 devices that were redundant, so where a person had access to 2 devices. And by being able to standardize to a laptop, we're able to ensure that people have the ability of working in different locations, especially we have Mayor Michelle Wu calls on us to take City Hall outside of City Hall, but making sure that we're also seeing savings and that we're maintaining less computers overall. When it comes to Zoom, we know that Zoom is a key tool that is used by a lot of departments and cabinets to engage with the public in public meetings and enable participation. It's helpful from an accessibility standpoint, but we have limited licenses. So what we've done is started to centralize the licenses that we have, and we've been able to identify departments that have unused licenses, and that gives us the possibility of distributing those licenses to other people that need it so that we can extend that resource without actually incurring an additional costs. Similarly, with DocuSign, we're centralizing licenses, I think, across like 7 or 8 departments. And again, because everybody buys with a little bit of overhead to make sure that they can cover their needs, when we aggregate all of the licenses, we're able to find that overall, we're not spending all of the licenses that we need, and we're able to rationalize. And in some cases, we're able to use those unused licenses to help support a new business case of something that is not supported yet. So we could potentially use those to work with the city clerk to be able to make sure that people are able to sign certain documents in a way that is secure and reliable. So briefly, some update on some of the major projects that our cabinet is working very closely with folks from all departments and agencies at the city. So foremost, this permitting and licensing transformation. So we know that the city is a key gatekeeper and because we drive trust and we drive safety. So whenever you're doing, there's a number of activities, whether you're building or refurbishing a house, whether you are trying to throw a block party, we permit and manage to make sure that people are following all of our standards. But we also know that getting your permits is probably not the thing that makes you the most excited when you're going in and getting a new kitchen. So we've launched this initiative with support of the council and of the mayor to be able to rethink the way that we approach permitting. So the first piece is, instead of thinking about our silos, instead of thinking about just, we organize permitting usually about how our departments are configured, but not necessarily around how constituents experience those permits. So at the far right, you can find a table that shows how is it that we're thinking about grouping at a high level these types of permits: construction, fire safety, right-of-way, environmental health, business licensing, events and code enforcement. And then on the left side, you have this layered cake, if you will, around like the different parts of the experience that someone goes through for any type of license. So from all the way from being aware that you should be getting a license to being educated to understand what are the processes that you need to follow, and then obviously all of the systems that you interact to go and get the license, payment of the transaction. There's some cases where getting a permit requires having inspections in the field, having plans reviewed. So we've been able, thanks to your support, to hire and build a team that is ruthlessly going to question how we think about that permitting should work, and we're working very closely with ISD, with planning, with all the different stakeholders to start. And the other piece for us as well is that we know that the existing system that we use for permitting is going to go end of life, so it will be unsupported in a few years. So we're staying ahead both of the security risk, but also of delivering a really great experience. Happy to share more about that as well. Another thing that we've been focusing on is making sure that the basic data that we have to run all of our city processes is in good standing, that it is accurate. It is at the heart of what allows us to make sure that our census counts are correct. It is what allows us to make sure that we have a record of an address when we are going to dispatch 911. So in the past year, thanks to your support, we've been able to reconstruct the street and address management system. We have a lot of acronyms, SAM. But SAM is the system that really tracks everything that we believe is an address to which we could either issue a permit or dispatch emergency vehicle if someone needs help. And we already this past year rebuilt SAM natively in GIS, and we've been able to save about $60,000 worth of recurring contracts, but also several $100,000 of upgrades because we've been able to insource that work thanks to your support and giving us some additional staff that can now do that work in-house. And we are, as we shared the next update, using already SAM as we start building the next generation of our 3-on-1 basic city services. So again, we know that our basic city services infrastructure is everything that enables the constituents to be able to tell us when there's an issue and making sure that the crews that are going to respond to that issue know what is the issue and that they can do the work and then communicate back to the constituents the fact that we have completed this. So this past year, we've had a long-standing need to replace our constituent request management system, our CRM. The good thing is, thanks to your support and the mayor's support, because we've been able to build the team and we've been able to contract in the replacement, already in less than 4 months worth of project, more than 50% of calls that use 3-on-1 are using the new system. And it is a system from a company that is based in Boston. And again, this is really remarkable because in the past we've gone several years working on projects without actually getting to delivery, and in less than 4 months we're already using the system heavily. In partnership with sanitation, we've been able to build new resources that help schedule the collection of mattresses, and we've been able to reduce the amount of time that a constituent has to wait to get their mattress picked up from 21 days to less than 2 days. And we continue to work on digitizing processes in transportation and public works, street lighting. And again, this is very close partnership of us with our teams working with the crews and the people that are out there, making sure that these things are taken care of. And we want to make sure that they have, the last thing that they're having to worry about is, do they know what is the right issue, that they can have all the support to make sure that their time that is very valuable is well spent. This coming year, we're hoping your continued support so that we can finish the replacement of the constituent resource management system, and that we can expand our asset and work order management system to street lighting, parks, and other departments. So again, so much of the work that these amazing crews are doing has been based on paper. The way that we've been tracking our inventory of what we have in the warehouse is based on paper. And these systems really save a lot of time for those crews, and they make sure that we're using our resources wisely, and if there are issues, that we know what is the condition of the assets that we have, and if case that there's a flood or there's some emergency, that we know what was the impact. So it's a great part of being resilient as well. And these are some great pictures that Rob Ellington in Street Lighting was very kind to share with us, because he's excited about being able to use this new tool. So this is Cartograph, which is our new asset and work order management system. So people like Rob that are working in Frontage Road are able to go and understand, they get real-time information about what's happening in the field, and then inspectors and people that are in the field are using mobile devices to result in the inspections and the work. And our hope is that we can capture more and more of the great work that these crews do, even the proactive inspections, a lot of the proactive work that is not just responding to constituents, because we know that the best quality of service is one that we never even failed. You never even had to tell us that something wasn't right. Yes, we want people, we've been very lucky in getting awards and recognition from other people, but again, our greatest pleasure is to be able to serve the constituents of Boston. Other projects that we have done that, again, go and continue to further this role that our cabinet has in connecting the pieces and connecting the data to drive better outcomes. We've been able to work with the registry through training and through other engagements to help them reduce the average waiting time for people in registry from 12 minutes to 5 minutes on average. We've built this Bastonia Academy, which is a training program that at this point has trained, I think, over 400 people, and has about 100 people that get certified by demonstrating through projects the work that they have done. And we have saved over $2 million of time that is now, $2 million of money that can now be spent in delivering value in other ways, and over 800,000 hours of constituent time that we've been able to save. And this is not do it saving time, it is do it enabling our employees across the city to do the things that they know that are the right things, and then having the tools to be able to measure the impact of that work. Through Project Greenlight, which is a partnership that we have with Google, we've been able to, and obviously the work done by the Transportation Department, the Traffic Management Center, reduce 13% in delay at intersections where we have been able to change the timing of different lights based on AI models, and that's also leading to we estimate a reduction of 10% of emissions in those intersections. We've been able to work closely with the schools and with registry as well to enable access to birth certificate data for the BPS Welcome Center. So if a parent wants to enroll their kid in BPS, you need to have a birth certificate. And we have about 60% of the birth certificates of all the kids that are trying to enroll in BPS. And instead of asking them to come to City Hall, pay $12, go back to the BPS enrollment center, having followed we built a new rigorous data sharing management process to make sure that we're being thoughtful about what are the regulations, what are the controls that we have around this data that is, that is restricted and we should keep secure, but we're saving families time when they are enrolling their kids in BPS. We've built, this is a project that came about with the Bastonia Academy and through some of the investments in basic city services. We built a new tool with the Parks Department to track our responsibility, whether we've plowed the sidewalks in the parks, and we've been able to reduce the amount of time and the costs associated with the way that we track and we plow, we clear snow and ice from sidewalks next to parks. We already talked about the technology modernization project around how is it that we're changing the way that we use devices and other resources to make sure that our employees have the right tools to do their jobs. And then our team also had a big part in the work of Boston Family Days, both supporting the evaluation of the program when it was in the initial pilot, but as we started expanding that program to kids and families outside of BPS, our team was the one that built all of the systems that enabled the families to register and to be able to access the tickets. Again, there's a lot of work, and this is just a quick highlight of some of the other things that might be easy to forget. Even we're a technology department, we do a number of different things, but obviously, so a lot of continued work on digital equity And we're lucky also to have other teams, including the creative team that has played a key part in celebrating the 250th anniversary of the revolution and of Paul Revere's heroic ride. So I will stop there and answer any questions if you have them. But again, thank you for your time, and thank you for having really supported the work that we do and helping us make sure that we're able to make it a little bit easier for our employees to do the work that they do to serve our constituents.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all your work. Just want to acknowledge that Councilor Durkin and Councilor Braden has joined us. I'll now turn it over to we're going to start with public testimony. Again, you can testify either in person or via Zoom. If you'd like to testify virtually, please sign up in advance using the link below. After you have signed up, you'll be provided with the hearing Zoom link, and please make sure you signed up into the Zoom with the full name you signed up with to help us call on you appropriately. If you'd like to testify in person, please sign up on the sheet near the chamber entrance, and when your name is called to testify, please step forward, introduce yourself, and you'll be called up in the order that you have signed up, and you have 2 minutes to testify. We will start with Dehelia Busad Cox, and then followed by Glenn Williams. The floor is now yours.
Thank you. Good morning, counselors. Thank you for inviting Tech Goes Home to participate today. I'm Dahlia Busaid Cox, interim CEO of Tech Goes Home. TGH is a Boston-based nonprofit organization committed to closing the digital divide. Over the past quarter century, we have provided tens of thousands of individuals and families with access to a digital device like a computer or tablet, reliable internet, and the training and support they need to navigate our digital world safely and effectively, empowering them to thrive in a world where technology has been integrated into all aspects of life. Our work has enabled graduates to advance their careers, earn pay raises, access healthcare more easily, assist their children with schoolwork, find housing, and engage with all that the City of Boston has to offer. I'd like to express my gratitude to this council, its staff, and the WU administration, in particular to the Department of Innovation and Technology, for being valuable collaborators in our work to close the digital divide. Last year alone, we successfully served over 3,100 learners in the City of Boston. We are proud of this accomplishment, but we also know the need for support is as great as ever. Indeed, there are currently thousands of people in Boston hoping to take advantage of our digital skills programming, but whom we don't have the capacity to serve. Today, we're here as partners in a shared effort to reach those folks across Boston who remain digitally disconnected. As you look ahead to finalizing the FY26 budget and the other important decisions before this council, we are eager to utilize our 25 years of experience to help identify effective solutions to digital inequity that are tailored to the needs of different communities in Boston, particularly as it relates to providing training and support for Boston residents seeking the knowledge and confidence to use digital tools. We stand ready to help you address the need and serve as many learners as possible in as many places as possible. Whether it's a child trying to complete her homework, a parent striving to advance their career, or a senior hoping to connect with their loved ones, closing the digital divide will have a profound, transformative, and multi-generational impact on our residents. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Glenn Williams. Yes, yep.
Good morning. My name's Glenn Williams. I'm from Rosendale, Massachusetts. My whole life, in fact, the grandchildren that are living there is the 6th generation in that house in Rosendale, so I'm a Rosy guy. I'm also the general manager of Boston Neighborhood Network. I want to thank the City Council and the administration for your support, trust, participation with our mission at Boston Neighborhood Network. We are very proud that we have had the opportunity to provide our leadership, the citizens, and countless nonprofit organizations in Boston a safe venue to express themselves. Freedom of speech is a vital service we provide the city of Boston. Contrary to local major news outlets, whose primary purpose is to deliver some of the devastating incidents that happen in our city, Boston Neighborhood Network has taken the opportunity to talk about the positive things, what's great about being a Bostonian. We're doing that twice a week, and we are very proud of the work that we've been doing and what we've come up with. We have implemented and continued use of closed captioning for our Boston Neighborhood Network media production programs, the news, talk of the neighborhood, extra help, things like that. And I want to take this very quick second to thank Brian Donahue from DOIT for his support and advice. It's been great. It's great to work with you cats. It's awesome. Over the past year, we have had 57 total truck shoots in the city of Boston. From the Puerto Rican Parade and Festival, Boston Caribbean Fashion Week runway show, the 26th Annual Haitian Independence Gala, St. Patrick's Day breakfast over in Southie, and we also covered at the same time, for the first time ever, the St. Patrick's Day Parade on the same day. Countless numbers of Boston public schools, boys and girls athletic events. One of the things we're trying to make sure that we do is that we're inclusive, that it's not just the guys playing football and basketball. We're covering all of the women's sports as well, and we're right in the middle of the cheerleading competitions. It's very, very important. Community parades across the Boston neighborhoods. And of course, the parade in November honoring and supporting our veterans. We find that coverage very, very important. Speaking of our veterans, we have received and opened our doors to the Timothy Smith Group Foundation that are working with veterans on digital equity, learning how to use their computers, learning how to generate an email, making sure that they can contact and be part of their family's birth. This is the space, this is what we're using our space over there. You've all been invited before. I think some of you sat on a dais with me a couple of times over at BNN, and I think that it's very, very important. Quickly, just a couple of our numbers. Third quarter radio numbers. We've had 2,862 total streams, 1,452 unique IP addresses, which gets out there and makes sure that people can cover and connect with anything that we're producing at BNN. And 31 countries have logged in to see what BNN is talking about and what we have to show. Our shows, we're doing an average of 12 shows a week in our studios upstairs. A lot of the shows are sent in because during the pandemic, we trained everybody how to do their shows remotely. And still trying to get those people to come back into the studio has been difficult, but the new membership keeps thriving, and we're very, very, very positive about that. We've done 90 shows in Studio A this third quarter, 40 shows in Studio B, and we hosted Madison Park High School to come over and be part of BNN and kind of their media group. Now, you're all familiar with high school kids. They come in like this, but then they didn't want to leave because they found that it was entertaining for them. They got an opportunity to stand behind a big camera and sit in the host seat and ask me a bunch of questions. I want to again say how much we appreciate the support of this council, the support of this administration. We've been with you cats for a long time. And as you know, the door is always open. just give me a ring, okay? I have to talk to you later. Okay, thank you very much, folks. We'll, thank you very much, Council.
Thank you. Thank you again for everyone who lent their voice to the budget process and gave testimony. I'll now turn it over to my council colleagues in order of arrival for first round of questions. Councilor Flynn, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the administration team that is here for the work that you're doing. Thank you to the public testimony. I also have worked for many years with Tech Goes Home. I know the incredible work they do throughout the city of Boston, working with so many people trying to address digital equity challenges we face in the city. There's one particular program I'm familiar with is it's over at Castle Square, which is in my district on the border of Chinatown on the south end. But they do tremendous work educating, training, supporting the residents, but especially the young people. So I want to say thank you to Tech Goes Home. Glenn, you do an exceptional job with the BNN television. You're inclusive. You bring out the best in people. And it's a great opportunity to go over there and talk about issues. So I want to say thank you to the BNN team. One of the issues I focused on and worked with the DOIT team on, and also want to acknowledge my friend Kerry does a tremendous job as well. I think I represent one of the most diverse districts in the city. I certainly represent the most residents living in public housing of any district council, so I'm glad you brought up BHA developments. Thank you for doing that. Tell me what you're doing to help residents in BHA developments with Wi-Fi, with better access. A lot of them are seniors, a lot of them are persons with disabilities. It's not, they don't necessarily have the luxury just to buy a computer or buy a phone, a $1,000 phone. But tell me what you're doing to support those residents.
Thank you for the question, and we're very thankful for the work that Tech Goes Home does in the Castle Square program as well. We're very supportive. So from a standpoint of our work with BHA, I would say there's three main efforts that are ongoing at this point. The first of which is, and actually they're all in collaboration with the state, with the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, who received a lot of federal funding for this work. So the first bucket is that we are working with them closely on digital navigation programs through the initial disbursement of funding from the state through the partnerships program. So we're working very closely, and actually I'm happy to put in the packet later, was one of the highlighted programs was doing some language, I believe, in your district for Cantonese-specific individuals, so digital equity programming specific to that language need. So that's on maybe on the devices and training front. On the affordable internet front, we've been collaborating with the BHA to be involved in two of the state's programs. One focuses on retrofitting some of the old infrastructure that's in those buildings for internet, which at least two of the sites are moving forward with, and an additional one that would fix up some of the infrastructure and also offer free affordable internet, free internet in the apartment, in the hallways of those locations, which is called apartment Wi-Fi by the state. So those are the three core areas, but there's a lot of ongoing stuff, and I'd be happy to include a summary of that work in the packet that comes over.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd like to ask, in most of my constituents in Chinatown, they speak Cantonese, and I know you mentioned that, so thank you.
Yeah.
And many of them are seniors, but I guess my question is, sometime this summer, are we able to do some type of workshop, educational workshop, with seniors, and just showing them and any types of tips or tools, or how they can navigate the 311 system, how they can place things into the 311 system. They might want to access other city services as well, but maybe some type of tutorial workshop sometime this summer. Is that something you might be open to?
I'm sure that we could work that out. I know that Peter Favorito, who is a member of my team, and I believe that has worked closely with your staff in the past, would be the person that lead that kind of work. So I think that that's absolutely something that we can get queued up, and I would be happy to work with you to get it advertised and make sure that that's usually one of the pieces, making sure that people are aware. We've done a number of workshops like this, and one of the main pieces of the puzzle is trying to make sure that folks show up. So we're kind of open from a standpoint of doing that direct help. If you have individuals that do need that, they can call the cable office and we can get them that support immediately. But from a workshop standpoint, we'd be happy to work with you on that.
That's excellent. Thank you. My other request is the Boston Public School System is changing their transportation or making some modifications to their transportation plan if someone hasn't communicated with BPS and they do receive transportation services, that it could impact their pickup or drop-off. But my question is, could you, and my point is, I don't want to see students with disabilities impacted and not get the right transportation because of some type of technical issue that they family might be dealing with. Maybe they're living in BHA, maybe they have faulty, not the luxuries a lot of other people do. But I guess my question is, would you work or at least communicate with BPS Transportation and let them know that I recommended a possible conversation on how you might be able to support them during this policy change? My number one goal is to make sure that transportation services for students with disabilities are not interrupted.
Yeah, absolutely. We have been building, and to a great extent because of the support and the companionship from the council, and we've been building a better and better relationship with BPS. We haven't specifically talked about transportation issues in the past, but just as of last week, I think that some of the teams here, Vanessa Casqueira is our Chief Technology Officer, and her team helped us upgrade some of the schools to 10 gigabits per second, about 20 of the schools. So transportation hasn't been one of the things that we've talked about, but happy to add it to our shared agenda.
Thank you. Excellent. Mr. Chair, thank you for this important discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. I want to acknowledge that we've been joined by the Vice Chair of the committee, Councilor Pepin, and also Councilor Weber. I will now go to, I think I have Councilor Durkin.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Thanks.
And great to be here with everyone. I acknowledge from the awards you've won recently that you guys are doing an incredible job, and my questions have no bearing on that great job that you're doing, but I think as a city we need to be ambitious. We need to build out our fiber network. I'm looking at this random article of top cities in terms of their fiber build out. It's Wichita, Kansas, Fort Worth, Texas, Lincoln, Nebraska, Charlotte, North Carolina, San Antonio, Texas, Kansas City, Missouri, Austin, Texas, Raleigh, North Carolina. I think Boston should absolutely be on that list. And with only 48 square miles, with the best institutions, with the eds and meds, with sort of all of these opportunities that we have to potentially get people on the hook to help us with this build out. I just don't think it's going fast enough, both from like a tourism perspective, but also from just wanting to be a world leader perspective. I know there was a 2022 report about how it would potentially cost, and I know and some of this is already done, but it would cost nearly $1 billion, this report, that the digital equity report that came out. I'm just kind of curious where we are to that goal, what part of sort of that network has been done, and also just if the parts of the network that are done are fast enough in terms of just like speed.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that question. Again, we know that access to internet connectivity, one, is essential for people to do so many things, but it's also a key driver of economic development. I think that we might not be in the list because we, in some sense, have done a lot of that work before some of those cities. So In 2016, I believe the city partnered with Verizon to build out their FiOS network as an alternative to Comcast, starting in the southern part of the city and then making its way through. And I think this past year, they finished their build out in downtown and Chinatown, which were the two last remaining networks. So we're lucky. We have a lot of availability of different providers. I think that the report that you mentioned cites that in almost every neighborhood, in almost every address in Boston, people can choose between 3 or more providers. And there's also new types of technologies that are being deployed, partially with support of the city, of 5G backhauled internet to the home and some other things. So, and I think that where Boston really leads compared in our conversations with other community members is in the city manage fiber assets. So we get those fiber assets thanks to the work that Brian and his team does in negotiating these franchise agreements. And we're going into a franchise renewal, so we will come for your help. We need support to make sure that Comcast and Verizon and RCN keep providing those assets to the city, because it's what fuels public safety. Every kid in BPS uses BONET. We call it BONET, is the Boston Optical Network. It really provides a unique service to the community, and we just finished upgrading the backbone of BONET to be to run at 100 gigabits per second, and we can up that up to a terabyte per second. So it's like we're like state-of-the-art network on the city-operated side of things. And where we know there's a gap, that's what this digital equity report was aiming at, is we know that there's still people that are not able to access this. I think that when we had, and I forgot to give a big thanks to all the community partners that are here, the Perkins School for the Blind that has also worked with us, Glenn at the BNN, Tech Goes Home, but nothing that we do by ourselves, we do with our community partners. But some of the work that was supported by the Digital Equity Fund that Brian was mentioning, we had residents in Chinatown that were interested in opening businesses, but they didn't know how to use a computer. They didn't know what they needed to do to get connected. So for us, we've been focusing on the infrastructure side of the affordable housing units. That's where there seems to be the biggest gap. But then making sure that the people that want to use the tools but don't know how to get connected or how to get the right speed that they need to do the things that they want. So,
I've been made aware of something in my district where a lot of buildings are sort of asking their residents to opt in to one internet provider. Does the city have an official position on that? Because personally, unless something is built into rent, I think it's really unfair and inequitable for a single building to be asked to use the same utility without any other options. And I've heard about this in the West End and other parts of my district, and I do think it's something that the city should weigh in on.
Yeah, I think our position and our strategy has been to maximize competition, so make sure that people have choice, and you just highlighted an area that is of concern to us, that in a multi-dwelling unit, usually the building owner might restrict some of the choice you might have. This is how you wrestle with that contradiction of we're a city that has a lot of fiber and a lot of options, but not inside the building. And the work that Brian was referencing around residential retrofit is partially to increase options for people that live in affordable housing and in BHA, but it is something that we would love to work with you all and having a more competitive.
I am considering and looking into banning that practice, and I don't know what's possible, but I would love your support. I think that it's completely a consumer protection issue that we would have individual landowners, especially when people own units, mandating what utilities are used when there are other options.
Yeah, I'd love to work with you all, and there's work that we've done in trying to understand, even from a technical perspective, what are the kinds of standards that we can support to enable more competition in multi-dwelling units.
And oh no, I'm out of time, but I do want to talk about AI. Obviously, I filed this hearing order in March on exploring the role of AI in improving the efficiency and providing services to residents in an even better way. I'm just curious, I know There's already some piloting of AI going on. I know you've done that for our council meetings, so our votes are now publicly online, which is incredible. And I'm just curious, what we are doing and what we can do to better educate city employees on the use of AI, knowing that we are a leader on guidelines and that other cities are looking to us in that respect.
Yeah, we're happy to dig in more when we have the hearing. We had prepared a couple of slides that are now, I think, in the package that show some of those public-facing needs. We are working closely with community partners and with a lot of people that we know that care deeply about this topic and have a lot of rich perspectives on this as we update our policies. And we've recently conducted a survey of our employees to get an understanding of how are they using AI, how would they like to use AI, what are some of the things that are fears and reservations, and we'll be happy to share that at the hearing.
Thank you so much, Chief, and thank you to all of you for your work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Durkin. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden. Councilor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. Good to see you all again. I think this is one of my favorite hearings. I think you do great work and very, very, very important. The first thing I want to touch on is cybersecurity. I noticed from the budget, is this the budget book? Yeah. That in the emergency management operating budget last year, they had cybersecurity under their remit, and it's not there anymore. Have you taken on the entirety of the cybersecurity operation?
In what piece, sorry, Councilor?
The emergency management operating budget last year, they had cybersecurity as under their operations portfolio. Is DOIT taking on all of that, or because I think it needs to be a unified operation?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, thank you for the clarification. Yes, there's a position for a cybersecurity regional coordinator that in the past had been based out of OEM, but worked closely with our Chief Information Security Officer, Greg McCarthy, and his team. This year, we are putting that position under DOIT. And again, it's partially part of the work that you guys have helped support us to do to better coordinate cybersecurity across all departments and agencies. And Greg also does a lot of work in coordinating cybersecurity regionally with other jurisdictions near in our vicinity. And we've also been tracking closely, but yes, long story short,
yeah,
it
without
is
going
now
into too many details, because
yes.
you know they're malicious intenders are knocking out whole countries in terms of shutting down Spain and Portugal and God knows what. So cybersecurity is a huge issue. So I'm glad. In terms of resources, do you feel that we're well enough resourced? Are you like it's a big issue?
It is. Look, we are really grateful for the support that you have given us and the mayor for having the trust and the vision to help support this. A lot of the things that we're doing that are improving the quality of services are also, another objective is to improve our security posture. Some of the systems that the city has used in the past are coming to age and they need to be replaced. So these things that we're doing that sometimes might look a little flashy, they're actually helping us reduce risk. So we're grateful, I think that we're grateful for the support and for the budget that we're proposing, and I think that it'll help us continue to move in the right direction. And we've continued to work, again, as you pointed out, it's a lot about risk management, understanding what are the threats that are out there, being prepared. And I think that for us, the biggest piece that you guys have helped us with as well is making sure that we have the ability and the authority to convene people to coordinate response, because
it has to be a regional response as well as just an interdepartmental response at the city level, but also a regional and even a national response in some cases. So yes, very good. The other question I had was about GIS and the need. Where are we at with our GIS system? You know, we really needed to get, in terms of analytics, we get really granular in terms of getting right down to census level data about changes in income in, like, even around the, say, Commonwealth housing in Brighton. That would have been an area of economic need because of the public housing, but they're building luxury housing and donut right around it. So are we able to sort of untangle all of that and still be focused on the needs of a particular subsection of our community using GIS?
Yeah, great question. So we've made a lot of investment and support, thanks to you all, to make progress in that regard. So we've been able to hire a couple of positions this past fiscal year to build in-house and manage some of the systems that allow us to track address management, our structures, to be able to relay information that we have from the Registrar of Deeds about ownership information with our address information. So there's been a lot of progress in that regard that allows us to answer the questions with the granularity that you described. And we're really excited to have Shimpei Sai is going to be our new Chief of Research and Data. And we're also doing work there to improve the coordination between different teams. So there's a lot of GIS capacity in different departments and agencies, but what we haven't had done in the past is coordinate. So now we have a GIS users group, and we're leaning into a lot of the expertise that exists across the board to drive and understand also where are the gaps, both in data, in systems.
And do we have multiple licenses, or do we have one unified license for all of our enterprise across the city?
So our cabinet manages the we negotiate on behalf of all of the units for our GIS licenses. There's a couple of departments that have their own license structure and they manage their own licenses individually, but we have a central contract. And then partially what we've also started to do is we have a lot of our footprint with Esri, but we've also been using other resources to be able to expand our toolkit as well.
Yeah. And then, just even thinking about annual reports, we haven't really had annual reports since the 70s or 80s. Is that something we're able to think about in terms of data and analytics? What demographic information, geographic information, economics, and then just thinking, even comparing neighbourhood outcomes across one neighbourhood to another. Alston, Brighton sort of sometimes get separated out into Alston and Brighton, and really it's Alston, Brighton together because we're so geographically removed from everyone else in terms of our resources. We can't just pop across to Brookline and use their facilities, and we can't go across to Newton, but it's much, we're closer to those places than we are to downtown. So just thinking about in terms of neighbourhood outcomes, and are we looking at that? I know we have a new planning department in-house now in the city, so how is that going?
Yeah, no, again, would love to listen and understand more about the needs and see how is it that it match either things that we're doing or things that we could do. We have been, one of the things that our team does is support all of the metrics that appear in the budget book. So we've been, our performance management team, Amy Hood and the others have done, Courtney Morris have done an amazing job. One of the things that we usually have when we're doing reports is, do we know how we calculate a number, and do we know how to make sure that it is consistent? And they have over 63 metrics that now they have certified. So they're we know how we calculated. We're consistently going to get the same number. And those are the ones that are being used in the budget book, and it's all automated. So certainly there's work that we've done to move in that direction, and we could try to figure out what's going on. And we work very closely with Catherine Lusk and others at the planning department. I know that there's been a desire to build kind of these state of the neighborhood reports that can help people understand how are things going in different neighborhoods, how does it compare to other neighborhoods. So we're certainly thinking about that and trying to work on ways to improve that.
I think I'm out of time, but I'll come back with some more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Brady. The chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee, Councilor Pepin. Councilor, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to the panelists and to those around the room. Just very thankful to have this conversation as the chair of the City Services and Innovation Technology Committee. This one's very important to the work that we do in my office and just making sure that you all have the support that you need. But before I continue, as the District 5 City Councilor, I do want to give a shout out to Mr. Glenn Williams in the house, Rosie's own. Thank you for the work that you do. And before I start my question, I just do want to sincerely thank you for the work that you do. I feel like in this day and age, for any city to function properly, you are the backbone to ensure that that happens. And the fact that you also keep me on my toes when you send those example phishing emails, thank you. I've learned to flag those as quickly as possible, so I appreciate that. All right, I'm gonna get serious now. I remember having a good conversation with you all in my office about maybe a year ago now. And I was able to learn about your WFW expansion program. And I would love to know, one, how's that going? Because I really like that idea. Two, are you thinking about taking it over to Forest Hills, which is obviously the feeding transportation ground for my district? And I just want to know, what feedback have you been getting from the residents? Because broadband, just access to internet in general is important, especially when you're waiting for public transportation. So can you elaborate on that?
I can start nerding out a little bit on the data, and then I'll turn it over to Brian, who can give more details. But it really is amazing. One of the things that we found out in the survey, the digital equity survey, is that low-income residents were twice as likely to report that they use wicked-free Wi-Fi regularly compared to all other residents. So we know that this is a key resource. In some areas, we're seeing, I believe that on a monthly basis, we're seeing about an average of 50,000 people connecting to free Wi-Fi. So it's an incredibly powerful resource that we have to connect people with information. Brian maybe can talk a little bit about this sites that we've been looking at, again, based on the community feedback and based on some of the iterations. We have some areas that we've been considering, and we don't want to replace any press release or any ribbon cutting that we have, but there's a couple of areas that have been on our radar based on shared conversations, and if there's others that we need to look forward afterwards, we're happy to talk about that and see how we can do that.
Yeah, so as I was starting in the role about a year ago, we were doing a lot of community engagement where we heard very good feedback from individuals. I think that some of the photos were up there as far as like actually just walking up to people in the street and saying, hey, if there was Wi-Fi here, would you use it? And those feedback mechanisms were very effective in Nubian Square and in Maverick. We hadn't considered the Forest Hills location yet, but I think that that's something that if we go back through and start to think about how to allocate the additional funding that we could get for this type of a program, that would be a great candidate. But at this point, that isn't one of the ones that is at that had come out of the data saying that we should do that one immediately. So.
Okay. We heard from some of the community members in Blue Hill Avenue and Mattapan Square about that being an area of need. So
absolutely,
that's a site that's in our radar.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's another major location in my district that we could definitely use it. Thank you for that. Another thing that I remember us chatting about, which I was very excited when you mentioned it, was somehow connecting our city departments more when it comes to data sharing and everything. I remember I used the idea of, let's say I'm a resident and I'm requesting to reserve a park for an event. I want to know if code enforcement or public works is also, they're able to see that I made that reservation in case this area needs improvement, or if they have a question about, I don't know, that park. I understand that right now different departments use different servers, or I don't know the right language. They use different programs. They use different. You'll do better than me explaining that. But I want to know, have we gotten any closer to merging everything?
Yeah. So again, I think definitely computers can't solve all problems, but they can really help with some things in ways that are unique. And I think that what we've been building is this approach that is very holistic about like understanding user needs, building for process, understanding regulatory and privacy concerns. We want to make sure that when we're doing these things, I think that at the federal level, we're seeing people do some of these projects without being rigorous and thoughtful up front. So we are definitely making sure that the way that we approach this is putting our understanding of the risks to people's civil liberties but we are in fact making a lot of progress on what you discussed. So the first piece is typically we had a lot of work that was not even digitized. So if we're about to go and do construction or rebuild or do something in a park, we might not have a record of that. But with your support, if next year we get the funding that we're requesting, we'll be able to expand Cartograph as a work order and asset management system for parks. So we'll be able to know what assets are there in what conditions, if there's work that's scheduled to be done. And as we continue to work on bringing our permitting and licensing system, right now we don't have in our request to replace our parks reservation system, but it gives us the ability of seeing what is going to happen in a place that we have a record of.
Right.
And then instead of you showing up for your event and it being boarded up, or like you having a bad experience, we're letting the computers do a lot of the difficult work of making sure that things are working. And that's also partially our investment in GIS, is making sure that all of that information goes back to the same systems of record. So regardless of the system that we have, that we're able to see things that are going, it helps us do a better job of being transparent and sharing with the public about what is work that we've been done. And one of the things that has been a big motivator is 311 is great, but our crews do so much more than what people just requested. So a big motivator of digitizing that work is also being casting light into the work that constituents are doing, that our employees are doing for constituents. So, all right, so I got a little too inspired to maybe run out of time.
Can I get one more question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I know that that's going to help also to the residents once that's merged, because let's say as a parent you put in your child's birth certificate for BPS, and let's say you then want to make a subscription to the BCYF Center, or I don't know, sign them up for something in the city of Boston. So it's all going to make it easier. My last question, and I promise, and this will be it. I remember also having a conversation with an outside organization, and I think with you as well, about somehow working in coalition with your cabinet and the streets cabinet on, let's say a resident wants to know if they can park on a street, and they want to know what signs are there. Have we been working on that technology? This is me geeking out, by the way, because this is a really cool idea.
Yeah, absolutely. We received some funding to build and develop new ways. And Boston is special. So we have different parking regulations labeled differently in different neighborhoods. So it makes it a little bit difficult. And if you go to any street pole, you see that we have a litany of different signs. So we have been fortunate to be building a little bit of research and development in understanding how so that we can use AI to be able to capture information about those signs, normalize it, so be able to make sure that we have apples to apples comparison around the types of regulations, and all of that back to be integrated to our work order and asset management system, so we know what sign do we have, what does it say, and then eventually also be able to get better, both from a policy planning perspective, but also from a constituent experience of, based on whether you are a resident or you're a visitor, where can you park, at what point, and what day of the week, at what point in time, if there's an evacuation order, or if there's snow plowing or street cleaning, that you know where is it that you should be able to park.
Yeah, I just think that that would be such a huge blessing to a lot of people in the city of Boston, where I feel like parking has always been an issue. And I just think about like Rosno Square. People think you can only park in the immediate vicinity, but there's actually no parking enforcement on my residential street. So it's like you can park there and just walk to the square. So I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
But Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing me an extra time. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Council Pepin. The chair now recognizes Council Weber. Council, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chair. Let's see. So I have some questions that it's not necessarily targeted at DOIT, but it helped me interpret some of the numbers here. And so one thing I think we see in different departments is, the number of full-time employees and the number of job positions and the difference between the two. So and so it looks like from 2021 to 2025, you've gone from 123 full-time people, and it was that for 3-4 years, and 2024 to 25 jumped to 145. And at the same time, the vacancies were about 157 to start, and now we're 175. So it's like we keep not quite being fully staffed because we keep adding positions, and we're adding 3 for this year. So I guess the first question is, how did you make that leap, get 20 additional people? I think we have this issue in a lot of departments trying to fill vacancies. What lessons can we pass on to other people, and where are those people working in one particular thing or not?
Yeah, I think, thank you for the question. Obviously, we're here to make sure that what we're doing is that we're doing in the way that's the most responsible. So the first piece, a little bit of context. I think that we shared with you, and we're working on making the full report public, but we had worked with a consultant called Plan Moran to do some benchmarking around staffing levels for departments. And if you look at, let's say, City of Washington, D.C., or Seattle, or other departments that are cities about our size, departments that support our need, Boston has historically been much lower staffed than other places. So I think partially for us has been making the case, and we're very grateful for the support of the council and the administration in saying technology is important. When it works well, it delivers. We've been shifting a lot of things that traditionally had been done by contractors and being outsourced to bring them in-house. So there's been intentionality in designing some of those roles. So like, for instance, a couple of the roles that were approved last year were there to support this street and address management work that is, again, like underpins everything that we do, every system. School transportation requires us to have the addresses where kids might live, all these things. So that's work that traditionally had been outsourced, and now we've insourced it. So I think that in terms of actually recruitment and being able to staff the positions, it's been very collaborative work with budget. We're incredibly grateful to budget and people operations. And it's been being very thoughtful about how we design the positions, being able to work and build with partners. We've had people, we've been working with people that have never worked in government before and telling them, hey, you have these technical skills, you should give it a shot. And you might not, you'll make a little bit less money, but we promise that you'll be building things that really matter at the end of the day. And we've also started to build alternative paths to hiring. So one of the things that we're very proud is with cybersecurity, building a partnership with El Centro, which is group that does training for immigrants that are trying to start careers in cybersecurity. They're changing careers. It's hard for those people to get their first job, and we've been taking them as their, doing a fellowship where they can get that first job experience, but we've been hiring some of them afterwards for full-time positions. It's a little bit here, a little bit there, and then mostly trying to make sure that every position that we get, we know that it has to matter, it has to really change the way that we work. And the good thing for us has been, if we're able to build these things centrally, every department gets to benefit, and we don't have to build 50 good IT organizations. We can build one good one and support all 40 departments.
Are the openings for predominantly like sort of senior positions, entry level, mixed?
All across the spectrum. So we have entry level positions, we have middle management positions, we have senior management positions. We've been able to have directors, but being able to restructure the department has been a key part of.
Yeah, and I think I think all my colleagues would agree. We want to see close to full staffing, you know, and so you see you add 3 more positions. Are you optimistic you're going to be adding? We're going to see a higher. We're going to go from 145 full-time staff to it'll be more next year.
Yeah, we're working very hard to make sure that we are fully staffed. Again, it's difficult. Like we hire for very specific skill sets. So like sometimes we need someone who is an expert in wireless networks, and makes this skill set restrictive. So it makes it a little bit harder with like the residency requirements and other things. But we have, Sheila's team is amazing, and like our managers, We feel good. We feel that
Okay.
we can fill our
And then
positions.
do you know, we talked about salary savings, and in the budget, they don't budget for all the positions. Do you know how many positions are actually being budgeted for as opposed to the number of?
Yeah, I can let Sheila weigh in. We work very closely with the budget office, and again, partially what we do is make sure that they know, like, realistically what positions we're able, and that's partially our success. Like, we haven't just gone and posted all of the vacancies. We've gone maybe like 10 positions at a time and just making sure, because it takes time. Interviewing takes time, posting and recruiting takes time, so we've kind of been very diligent about like what we post. I think that we're on the 5th or 6th iteration of that hire, but I don't know if Sheila.
Do you have something you want to add? Yeah.
Just in terms of salary savings, we look at historically how much we've saved over the past few years, and then so in our budget, we use that information and we do a lump sum more than by position.
Okay. And then just, so in terms of contractual services, I know DOIT overspends, and I think last year there was a transfer of at least 9 million, or there was a late transfer, maybe totaled more than that throughout the year. Can you just explain what is happening with the contractual services, why we need to budget, we need to spend, so much more than we budget, and whether we have looked into what that services are for, and then are we looking to provide those services in-house?
Yeah, so there's, and again, I'll also look to Sheila to supplement my answer, but one of the things that has driven our budget, our operating budget, to look higher than it might look for other departments in this time is we've been shifting spending from capital to operating, and that's a good thing for the city because the spending that we had on capital was recurring spending, is making sure that we have the resources to be able to maintain our security and access program, our identity access management program, something that we expect to keep for a long time. But when we have it on capital, we also borrow against to pay it, whereas if we put it on operating, we don't. So we've been purposely shifting expenses. We've been purposely shifting expenses to something that allows us to get the same service without paying the interest. And we've also been working a lot on if there's a position that is being currently done by a contractor, they live in Boston. We want the person to get their benefits, to be, if they're representatives, make sure that the union has the position. So
Just less general, sorry, do you know why, so what happened?
With the 9 million?
With the 9, there was a 9 million, I don't know if it was like 12 total or something like that.
I know that one point some was this capital to operating shift. There's other things that we've been centralizing, but Sheila can maybe get you a more precise answer.
We can get back to you with a specific answer, but in general, some of our contracts include like the licenses and the services, so the maintenance and support, and sometimes they're bundled together in the budget under our current charges, and then but when we actually go out to buy it, we split it up so that we count certain ones under current charges like the licenses, and then other parts with the support and maintenance we put it under contracted services. So it's just a budgeting of like we budget in one area, but when we spend we try to align it with where it spends. But because the services come from like one vendor together, it's easier for us to budget in certain lines.
And if there's a specific transaction that you're saying that you
Well, I'm just wondering, I'm sorry, Chair, but I'm just wondering if, like, are we have a vital service that we're providing, then we're relying on a contractor, and at the end of the year, it's like, oh my, there was a lot of overtime or whatever, we have to come up with extra money, and then what is that, and then can we do it in-house? So I just don't know what the specifics are, because I think all we see is a number, contractual services, and I think it was 12, but. 10.
10 million over, right?
Yeah. Something like, let's say 10, sure. I mean, it's just, and just trying to figure out what's happening. I'm happy that money's going to a good place, and obviously you're doing great work. And, is there one contract where some contractors, being difficult, or is we relied on them a lot more because there are a lot more cyber attacks, or we got a lot more 311 calls, or something. I just don't know, how to explain that, how we look at it. going forward.
Let us get back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let us get back to you because there hasn't been anything quite of that nature of scale. And the changes that I'm describing are ones but they're not at the order of $10 million.
Okay, yeah.
The shift from capital to operating is about $1 million and change. But I don't know, we would have to work with OBM also to understand exactly what the transfer.
Great.
Why they did, what is the nature of the transfer?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk, offline or, just so we can just make informed decisions. And thanks.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Sorry, Chair, to go on longer.
I don't know why I have the timer. Thank you, Councilor Weber. Going back to one of Councilor Weber's questions on salary savings, I see that it's $1.3 million. Has that increased? It's on page 316 under Department Personnel. Has it increased, decreased year over year?
Every year, because salaries are going up, salary savings will go up.
Naturally go up?
Yeah,
Right.
as well. So
How much do you know how much it has increased? By like a percentage or a dollar amount?
I'll need to get you the exact percentage.
Okay.
I don't have it memorized.
All right. And then on page 322, when we're starting to show cybersecurity training program target, why do we cap out at our target for 80% completion?
So that is, again, there's two things that are driving. One, we decided that it'd be better for us to do the training quarterly as opposed to yearly because it makes people, as like Councilor Pepin pointed out, they feel guilty about not doing it or getting it a bad score. But that usually drives the percentage complete a little bit lower because there's more opportunities for people to take it. And we've been working closely with managers, so we go and we tell the managers in each department the list of the employees that haven't completed the training. If there was an issue, we could potentially use the fact that an employee hasn't completed the training as evidence that they have not been as diligent in doing their part in supporting and protecting us. But yeah, and it is, the participation in the training cells is one of the things that this is the first year that we've gone out to get cybersecurity insurance. And one of the things that the people that underwrite the policy look at is security training. So we try to keep it up. 80%, it's not bad, but we can do better.
Right, yeah.
And it requires the help of everybody. Yeah.
Awesome. And then there's a lot of talk about federal funds and if we're going to be receiving all of our federal funds. Are there any federal funds that you're concerned about? One that comes to mind is the SMART grant, which is valued at $1.1 million. It goes to a map of parking regulations. With this fund, and it goes into map parking regulations. I like the idea, especially as I know Commissioner Gove and his team have worked on a new set of parking regulations. And I do think that needs to be more widely communicated to the public. And would this fund help with that? And then again, is this a federal fund? And then you can speak to any federal funds that you're kind of worried about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, the work that we were describing to Councilor Pepin about using AI to map the parking regulations as they're posted in the signs, that is the SMART grant.
A SMART grant.
We have been able to get additional staff and also professional services through the grant. So again, we believe that this is important work that any administration of any ideological disposition understands that parking is a universally accepted problem. And we'll continue to monitor with OBM, and if there are issues, we also appreciate, and we're really grateful for the support of the council in making sure that we're protecting the resources that have been allocated for the city.
Got it. And then in terms of like communication, is communication part of that SMART grant? So when Commissioner Gove is releasing new parking regulations on, I guess, how close you could park to someone's driveway, we want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. Is communication part of the grant?
Yeah, so this was originally intended by the federal government to be a two-stage grant. So there's kind of a planning and demonstration piece and then another component. So we were hoping to get another $10 million grant on top of this, but we believe that maybe the administration has decided not to fund that. It is part, again, our final objective is to be able to have be able to present both to the public and to our policy planners an understanding of what is the parking space that's available, to take into account curb cuts, to take into account all of these things. And what this grant allows us to do in a way that's very unique is be able to compare also what's posted on the sign with what's on the books. So we think it's important work. It's work that any American city has issued. This is a thing that we think that if we sort out how to do in Boston, will benefit people everywhere. It is done in parallel with other work that we're doing, the implementation of Cartograph and whatnot. But so, yeah, we're grateful to have received the funding, and we are hoping that we can keep the funding to complete the work.
All right, and then this is a question for one of my team members, Anushree. Shout out to Anushree, who is a big fan of Canva. And are we looking to expand Canva licenses to city council staff?
Well, we're always happy to hear, and if there's things that you guys need to do your work, we're happy to take a look at that again. I think in the past year, one of the things that we've done both in our creative team and then with the support of our governance and technology team is precisely understand what are the people that are using Canva, and we've been able to extend the licenses for Canva, what we have historically done, but if we get the funding and the resources to support you, we'd be very happy to make sure that you'll have the licenses that you need to do your jobs.
And you can always get back to us on how much that would cost.
We'll be happy to share that with you all.
All right. And then I know we have 311, and we're working on that new CRM. Elsewhere across city departments, we use HubSpot here on the council. I use HubSpot for constituent services. Has any thought been given to extending access to the new 311 system to city council staff offices so they can better coordinate with departments and constituents and see what's happening on real time?
Yeah, again, we'd be happy to have further conversations to understand the things that are needs, and 311 plays a very specific role in the way that we, there's a number of different CRMs that different departments and agencies use depending on their need, but we're happy to follow up with you to understand what are the needs and how so that we can meet them.
Got it. And then just going back to contracted services, is $6 million budgeted? Is that enough? And I'm going back to Council Weber's question. FY23, what we spent was $8 million, and then FY24, what we spent in that line item was $14 million. I believe both of those went over the budget. Do we feel that $6 million is enough? And I know everyone's going to probably say yes, but just based off of what has happened in the past.
Yeah, again, when we have needs, we do budget transfers based on, if we have salary savings, we're able to use that at the end of the year for any services that we may need, and then for any savings in licenses or just reworking of some of those charges, we're able to cover our needs for contracted services.
Yeah, and one thing also to highlight that might explain thank you for the question is, thanks to the work that Sheila and Paula, who's our Director of Budget and Finance in the department, is we've improved our budget practices, so we're starting the budget process earlier. And one of the things that we're doing with our chiefs and our managers is making sure that the things that we use are budgeted.
Right.
So we've been very keen over the past few years on making sure that if there's an expense and it is essential for the city to have it, that it is budgeted, so that we had issues in the past where we weren't doing that, and then we have to do these transfers. So that has become a rare occurrence because of the work that they have done in improving the way that we budget. But that's also partially what's driven the DOIT's budget is partially because there are things that we knew that we needed that we just hadn't budgeted in the past, and sometimes even what you shared before, that we knew that someone might need a license, and then we just need to buy additional licenses because those people are not able to do their work. So those are, explains a lot of the changes in DOIT's budget in the past couple of years.
That makes sense. There's flexibility in the budget from payroll savings to go down to contracted savings. So if it's needed, it can go from personnel to contracted. Yeah, it makes sense. I'm gonna go back to my council colleagues for second rounds of questions. I'm gonna assume that everyone here has second round. Councilor Durkin, the floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate getting a second round. So one thing that was, I think, it was core to your message when you were presenting earlier, that closing the digital equity gap is one of the core priorities of the city. It looks like this is from the 2024 digital equity assessment. Is there a more recent assessment?
So the digital equity survey we completed between fiscal years and calendar years, I don't even know but yes, we completed last year. That's the first time that we've ever done a survey, and it's recent. So there's some things that change year to year, but we felt that was a good snapshot generally. But no, there's not anything more recent than this. There's some metrics that get updated more regularly, but not in this very comprehensive way.
So one of the points is that 24% of residents find home internet unaffordable. One thing that I think a lot of residents that I've talked to and myself have experienced is obviously sometimes you get locked into a good deal with a good provider, and then within a year or two, it's double or triple, and the pain of returning your router or modem or whatever else you need to return is just too much, and you end up sort of locked into this. Is there any sort of move or thought, thinking from the city to do some sort of training on how to set up your own modem, how to do this? There are a lot of predatory things that are being done by Comcast and Xfinity and Fios. And I've seen it. I've had constituents reach out to me about it. I've also, I have constituents that don't have internet and don't know how to get it, don't know, how to get the fastest internet. I do know that there are great programs that, if you are within a certain income bracket, the city has really worked with those companies to expand access at lower price points. But as we know, Boston is really unaffordable. The amount people are paying for rent is absurd and only continuing to go up. And so any bit that we can cut from utilities, the better. So what advice would you give to constituents, and how is the city trying to work with these companies, which I know we have a close partnership with some things, but also need to hold them accountable?
Yeah, I would ask for the backup of our Chief Digital Equity Officer as well, but I'd say there's a couple of things that we do. Brian is incredibly good, and Mike Lynch before him, in advocating for Bostonians to the FCC and other regulatory bodies. So one of the things I think that we've advocated for in the past and now exists is there's this almost like a nutritional fact of what gets charged in an internet bill that includes all those hidden fees, charges, and whatnot. It's any Bostonian can request that information thanks partially to the advocacy that the city has made to the FCC. And now that some of these rules are getting reverted, we also need the support of the council and others to make sure that the FCC knows how important these rules are for people. But I'd defer to Brian to maybe share other resources that people can get.
Yeah, so we're doing work to regularly connect individuals with the types of resources that you're describing, the low-income affordability plans, and anyone who lives in the city of Boston can call the cable office or digital equity email address, and we'll be happy to advocate for you to the companies, as well as connect you with and give you a laundry list of the resources. But to Santi's point, a lot of this is controlled at the federal level, and the strides that we had made in the field over the last 10 years or so, some of those are really coming up for scrutiny at this point, including the broadband nutrition labels is what they were described that I worked on in my previous role. So that was a pretty great development from that standpoint, but that's the type of stuff that we're actually kind of trying to claw and hang on to as the new FCC and the new administration come in with this centralized federal power for this work.
Oh, absolutely. And I thank you for that advocacy, and I think it is important. I didn't really realize all that you guys are doing to keep, internet affordable for people, and just like those services that you're offering on top of everything else you're doing. So thank you for that. I'll go back to AI. So many private sector orgs are building their own proprietary AI agents, and we even had someone testify at one of our early Ways and Means hearings about how they thought BPS should have their own AI. And I'm just curious if you see any, or the city sees any value in training, in having an AI agent or sort of LLM or specific AI to the city of Boston that has access to certain documents and workflow, and whether that's something that the city of Boston sees as something that we should invest in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for the question. I'll try not to take away too much good content that we'll share during the hearing, but one of the things that we know that is a top concern for employees at the city, and that we haven't done any surveys or any thing at the constituent level, but maybe it's a thing that we should, is privacy and security are high concerns, and intellectual property is a big concern.
Although I heard that from BPS about, some senior paper, and I was like, I would love to meet the senior's paper that AI can't own. Like I would love to meet them. They must be really brilliant, so.
Yeah. No, I think, so their concerns, there's different things that we can do. I think like one, even if we're operating kind of state-of-the-art models and AI systems, we can do it in a way that preserves privacy, where all of the things that you're doing are not shared back with the company. So that's an area that we're exploring, partially because we know that, we know that are things that these tools are useful, and they're risky, but so that's partially what we're working through with the people that are helping us think through this AI work. We're thinking about this from a labor perspective, from a civil liberties perspective, from an intellectual property rights perspective, before we go and kind of unlock some of these tools. Training our own model is tricky, but one of the things that we've done is had the pleasure of being a co-chair of the AI task force that the governor had, a partnership with the city. And one of the things that were created as part of the economic development funding is, sorry, maybe I speak too much, is through Mass Tech, there's an AI's model challenge. So we submitted an application in partnership with MIT, and we also convened a number of other municipalities to try to build better urban AI models, with the thought that if we're able to layer information about our urban makeup, material science, you could actually help these tools help with energy saving approaches to help people understand and be able to drive energy efficiency in homes and in commercial uses. So we are trying to get the money. We'll find out if we get the resources to continue to do the foundations of this work. But we applied for $1 million from Mass Tech, so maybe we'll ask you all to help support that.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I do have just one thing I want to say, which is obviously we're in this beautiful landmark building, but it's concrete, and that means that we have some of the worst cell phone service in the entire, it's brutal, it's concrete. We have some of the worst cell phone service, in the entire, have we thought about putting, and I don't know, we have the experts here, have you thought about sort of putting little smaller towers or some device to extend cell phone, because I know particularly our area, which is not landmarked, has some of the worst cell phone service in the entire building.
Yeah, so one of the things that we have been working on, and thanks to our network team and again our Chief Technology Officer in the audience, Vanessa, we have been doing a wireless survey of City Hall. Unfortunately, we are not looking at small cells or replicators for cellular connectivity, but we are looking to expand and improve the quality of Wi-Fi in the building. As we know, even in the constituent-facing areas, you might have to get some paperwork when you're getting a residential parking permit or something else, and nothing worse than the thing that you need to show the person at the parking clerk, and you can't you can't connect to the internet. It's happened to me before. So we are working on that, and that's one of the things that we have in our budget is to make sure that this is a very difficult building from a electromagnetic spectrum perspective. So we're
Well,
hoping.
and Chief, if you were the, if you were working on public facilities, I'd be asking about our toilets. So you're blessed to have the job that you have because we're asking about connectivity. So, but thank you, Chair, and thank you all for all that you do.
Councilor Durkin. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you. I think we've maybe already touched on this, like the assessing data and the connection or the lack thereof between ISD and court enforcement. We've been told that we can't put liens on buildings because because we don't have good, accurate street and address on ownership data, but the assessing department doesn't seem to have a problem sending out the bill to the appropriate person. So I'd love to know where are we at with that.
Absolutely. An active area of work. Some of the challenges that we have is a lot of times what we have in terms of records for property is actually when you buy a house. I've learned this partially out of the exploration that we're doing, but we bill for taxes, escrow accounts for people that have mortgages as opposed to the actual property owner. But we are working on improving the way that so long story short, the record that we have for who to send a tax bill may not be the same person that would pay a code enforcement bill. But we are working on improving this enterprise citywide understanding of addresses, parcels, and owners so that we can drive better outcomes. And it is something that our team in our data products team are doing and working with assessing, with collecting, with our permitting and licensing teams to make sure that we have the right records.
Yeah, we've just gotten ourselves the ability to increase the fines after 50 years, so we'd love to be able to make it work. Anyway, the other question I had was energy mapping and electrification of Boston. Like we're seeing a need to build more facilities called BESS facilities, battery energy storage systems, and we have one particular one in our neighbourhood that is very close to neighbourhood residential housing, and there's lots of concerns. But are we able to sort of project like appropriate locations? Like given, I think the regulation of this it's not ready for prime time yet because the state is still finalising their details, and we are also. But is that something like our mapping systems could locate spaces and places in the city where would be maybe optimal for location of these facilities?
Yeah, I mean, personally, we're very excited and grateful for the support around permitting and licensing, and also for the address management, which again has been part of what has driven the new positions in the past few years, is because even though from a policy standpoint we can't give you the answer of what needs to be done, we know that having the right systems to make sure that that no one could build a thing where it's not permitted, but the people that could be able to build some of the things that are needed can be able to do it in an expeditious fashion is important. And so much about climate change is about investing in heat pumps and energy saving, and also in electrification and expanding the grid and other things that are happening in the right of way. So we think that all of the work that we're doing and improving the data and the systems to manage those processes are absolutely going to help us do the right thing when we do these investments.
The other conundrum I had from a constituent yesterday was that they have workmen, they own a rental property, they have tradespeople going to do the repairs and maintenance, and they're getting tickets because it's 2-hour parking, and it's a replacement of a boiler, a heating system. And they're getting tickets, and the person from BTD is very zealous and said, right, well, I'm going to come back in 2 hours and ticket you again. So is there a way with all this new technology that we could actually do like a digital permit that, you know, if you were going to do a job at a certain address, that you could plug it in and get a permit that you could maybe print out and put it on the dashboard for a specific length of time? The other, it comes up with nurses and visiting personal care assistants for people who are ill, and teachers who get, we deal with tickets a lot, but it's just an added, with this new technology, is it something that we could look at and see if our innovation folks could come up with an elegant solution to this pesky problem?
We'll make sure that as we work very closely with the Office of the Parking Clerk and with BTD as they think about their next chapter when it comes to technologies to support parking enforcement, parking permitting. We'll take those great ideas as things that we aspire to. And we're in the process already, and our teams have been helping transition some things that the parking operations traditionally have outsourced, like computers, networks, and other things. So we'll add those ideas to the list of things that we could try to help them with as we think of the next chapter for parking technologies.
Because the one side of everyone loves a residential parking sticker and the ability to park close to home, but then you have teachers who come to work in the local school, and it all gets very messy. But any help you could assist in that would be really fabulous. Thank you. And thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
I've got a minute. Have I got a minute left?
Yes.
Oh dear, better think of another question.
It doesn't mean you have to
I have
use
another
it.
question. Census. In the last Trump administration, the administration was doing everything they could to discourage participation and making it very difficult. Okay, we were in the middle of a once in 100 years global pandemic at the time, but I imagine they're going to do the same this time round, and even though maybe thankfully they're going to be gone by 2028, but not fingers crossed. The infrastructure for conducting a good census gets laid down now at this stage, and maybe even already. Once you finish one census, you start doing the next. Where are we at in thinking about sort of taking control of that at the local level rather than relying on the federal government to help us or hinder us in that process?
Yeah. It's a great question. I had the pleasure of serving in similar roles in two cities and during the last census, so I wasn't here when that was happening. But there are things that we can do, and it is, at the risk of sounding like a scratch record, it is precisely the work that we're doing around improving our address management, our records of permits and licenses, because partially what helps us understand, prepare where are the locations that we're going to send someone to get census collection is based on our understanding of what are the structures, what are the units that exist. So good data quality in terms of the built environment is the precursor to a good census.
Yeah.
And in the past, there's a lot of work that we would have had to do manually that now we're making sure as we have the right record of the right property, both so that we could issue a fine for code enforcement or to know that that's a place that someone from the census could go and visit. And I know that that is the kind of data that Alvaro Lima and the folks at the planning department's research team were using to understand what was missing from the census last time around.
Yeah, and we are a hard-to-count city.
Yes.
And we did undercount by about 20,000 people the last time. Alston Brighton alone were undercounted by about 6,000. So it's really important. We're leaving a lot of money on the table, if there's any money on the table next time around, but I don't want to be too pessimistic about the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. The chair recognizes Councilor Weber. Councilor, the floor is yours.
Sure. I guess just following up on something Councilor Durkin was talking about in terms of like AI. I don't know if it's like actually the game changer that we sort of hear about. I mean, what is your sense on using it in the future? It can do your homework for you, but like, is it actually going to make a difference? In our city. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so I think AI, particularly generative AI, which is kind of the newer incoming technology in this landscape, like large language models that are able to go and generate text based on just like a text prompt or be able to generate an image. Our take is, look, it is somewhere between the these tools are useless and these tools are the greatest thing and the only thing that can help any solution. So what we see is that these tools can be quite useful, particularly in a government context. So much of what we do is process things with words. So we write memos, we write summaries, we write reports. We also read and consume information from those reports. But like if you go and you look at the handbook for 30B for procurement of goods and services, the concise version of guidance is 200 pages long. So in our context, useful. And we see it with the work that we're doing with the parking signs. Also, potentially useful in ways that are kind of non-trivial. We know that these tools can be incredibly helpful from an accessibility standpoint. They could allow someone with a screen reader, instead of going into a data chart that says just chart, to be able to describe, this is a chart of these elements. This element is bigger than this other element, actually being able to describe things. So generally, we think that it is something that could be helpful. But it is also a set of technologies that could be quite harmful. And I think that from the mayor's perspective, we want to be clear about some things that go even beyond the way that that could be harmful if the city uses it. So we know that there's a high environmental impact of using these systems. These are systems that are massive they're massive pieces of math, if you will. They need these large data centers and a lot of specialized equipment to run. Because they take a lot of energy to run, they also take a lot of energy to cool. So it's not trivial, the environmental cost. There's concerns from copyright and from an intellectual property protection. These companies have said publicly that they're using material without being licensed, but then at the same time seeing what SAG-AFTRA and what the labor movement is doing in terms of making sure that there's protections to people that create content and making sure that they're... So that is to say, there's a lot of nuance and it is a complicated topic, but what we see is there is value, there's unique risks, there are costs, and what we've been trying to embark collectively, and I think that we're very lucky to be in Boston because we have all these rich relationships with community members, with our employees, and they are helping us guide to try to do this the best way. I don't think that we shared the perspective of DOGE. So foremost, we don't, at this point, it does not seem, not only from a policy perspective, from a technical perspective, that we could replace people with AI. There's tasks that could be supplemented with AI. There's tasks that could be replaced with AI. But a person's ability to understand when things don't look right, AI easily falls off. Knowing that there's like a personal commitment of a person with an outcome, you can't get that from a machine that's just basically shaking a lot of words to produce an output. But they're useful, very helpful in some contexts.
Okay, yeah, and I went to a discussion about technology, and the prediction was like, I don't know, 5-10 years, the combination of AI and quantum computing would fundamentally change. I mean, I'm assuming quantum computing is not something that we think about on the city level, but his advice for one of the presenters' advice, piece of advice was that we should be training our kids how to construct digital workers through AI because they multiply, the ability of what someone can do. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We do think about quantum computers and how they impact the city, and the biggest risk at this point is so much of the digital infrastructure that we use is protected with encryption, and one of the things that quantum computing...
Is it zero-day or something? I can't remember what it's called.
Yes, it could potentially defeat all, but there are things that the NIST and other agencies, there's post-quantum computing encryption algorithms. So, sorry, I just we do think about that one, and we think about the...
No, thank you for reminding me, because basically they have trouble keeping the bits working for more than a second or whatever, and they even less than that. But if they figure out that challenge, then basically all encryption, including when our power grid or it's all vulnerable but so we're preparing for that?
Yeah, we do think about it as something that we talk with our Chief Information Security Officer, that we, in the back of our mind, think about what are all of the systems we would have to replace. Security cameras, credit card payment processing tools. So the point being, and tied in with AI, we live in a world that's changing very rapidly, and why we are very grateful for the support and the additional positions and all these things. Like, we want to be ahead of the change and not just in the receiving end of the change. And I think when it comes to AI in educational settings, there's mixed results. There's some, it seems, and this is where I'm not an educator, I'll leave the tough questions to Superintendent Skipper and to her team, but there does seem to be potential uses in some cases where AI can help educational experiences. In other settings, they seem to hurt learning. So if the AI tool is going to do your homework for you, it seems there's some studies that show that if you had that, when the tool becomes less available, when you lose access to the tool, you actually perform worse if you never had the tool. But there's ways in which the tool could be used for tutoring, for, it depends, so much of it depends on how it's used. So, but we think, because of who we are and where we are, this is a place that can be part of how we invent the future. And we are excited to work with the university partners, with BPS, and with you all to try to figure out, like, what does that future look like? What does the education in the next 50 years gonna look like? What does a world with quantum computing gonna look like? Because it is going to be different, but if we do it with our values and we do it together, we think that we can get the best experience and not just some dystopian movie.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Chair. I don't know, don't gavel me.
You're fine, Council Weber. Thank you, Council Weber. I think we're now closer, or hopefully we're now closer to codifying DOIT, which will give your cabinet, your department, more access and jurisdiction across the city of Boston. And knowing that's like the main goal is giving you, more jurisdiction, more access, and make some more improvements and set more guidelines. With that, would you need more increased capacity, or do you think that with your current staffing levels, you're able to fulfill on the goals outlined in the codification?
Yeah, again, we're really grateful to the budget office and to the mayor, I think, and to you all. So there's things that we've already done over the past few years that make us feel confident about what we're embarking on. He just left, but our new director of compliance, risk, and auditing, it's a new position that we created by recrafting some existing roles to help us make sure that we have the ability of auditing, so that we don't only have to trust that we're doing the right thing, that we can verify that we're doing some of the right things. And we know that some of the systems that we have are really useful, but can also pose a risk to people's privacy, security, or compliance with the law. We've invested in a new governance and policy team that we've now fully staffed. So we have 5 business relationship managers and a director of policy and governance. So I think that if we had not done all of that legwork over the past few years, and thanks to the trust and the relationship that we have with the council and with the other departments, I would feel very nervous about us taking additional work. But I think that we've done a lot of the things. We've built trust, we've built processes, and we've showed that when we work together, we all get a little bit better. And obviously, in the future, we'll come back to y'all and we'll talk with our finance team and whatnot if we think that there's gaps that need to be filled. But at this point, we feel very comfortable that all of the work that we've done to get to this point sets us for success, whatever we're going to do in the next year.
Sounds good. Going back to the survey, the digital survey, you've identified digital equity as a problem for the city. Whether it's affordability, device access, digital skills, or internet speeds. Can you talk to me about the work that you have done in collaboration with the department or the cabinet of equity to create a strategy to tackle some of these issues? Is the Equity Cabinet coming up with goals with you to meet? Are they providing any guidance on how to engage with these communities that have low internet speeds or lack of digital skills or affordability? Can you talk to me about the collaboration and the strategies that you and the Equity Cabinet have set?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, and I'll start, and then if Brian wants to supplement a little bit. Everything that we do in partnership and in collaboration. So there's a number of ways in which the Equity Cabinet, but also the people that the Equity Cabinet has relationships with, has influenced and supported this work. Not only in the survey, but also in the delivery. So when we were thinking about where would we expand Wicked Free Wi-Fi, we consulted the Equity Cabinet and all of the different departments. What are areas that serve the different communities that they serve? And based on the recommendations that they made, those were what we decided were the candidate locations to expand Wicked Free Wi-Fi. So that's how we came up with Maverick Square, with Nubian Square, and some other locations, Mattapan Square, as places that we thought that we should look into. The other piece is even in the way that we think about how we capture and interact with the community members that we're trying to serve. So the Disability Commission and Commissioner Makash, we worked closely together with them as we were building new standards on how we gather information about people from the disabilities community, and our partners at the Perkins School were really critical in understanding, because partially for us, it's like, even as we think about talking about how to engage with communities, a lot of times we just don't know, we don't have the average employee doesn't have I didn't have the background on how is it that we are going to be interacting, and when should we ask what questions. So we build disability data collection standards that focus on accommodations rather on medical conditions, which seems so sensible, but it took a lot of work. It is not trivial to get there. So both in the design of how we ask questions from the survey, how we engage. So when we did the survey, we did a random sample of people, but we also focused, we wanted to get really good quality responses from those communities. So we worked with, not only with the Equity Cabinet, but also with Health and Human Services. So we make sure that we get access to people from the Veteran Affairs Office, from returning citizens, to get a higher response rate with populations that are really hard to reach, and we couldn't have done it without the relationships. And lastly, on the delivery side of things, we also supported 35 community organizations through a digital equity fund, and those organizations were identified in partnership by the Equity Cabinet. So we're working with people that work with at-risk LGBTQ plus communities, with immigrant advancement, with others. Because we know that these issues are very intersectional. The people that have issues with access are people that have other things going on that make it hard for them to be able to afford these things. But Brian?
I really appreciate the question. Santi stole my talking point at the end there of they were very closely involved in the development of the Digital Equity Fund for this last round, and were able to be reviewers in that process. I would also just want to quickly shout out the Office of Immigrant Advancement, Courtney White, who we've been working closely with. That's one of the key populations that I think are going to continue to have issues in the digital equity space, and so it's a group that we have extra focus in. But from across the Equity Cabinet standpoint, they were very informative for the funding that was going to those community organizations.
Got it. And I just want to have two more questions, but I do want to advocate for the cabinet and the departments within the cabinet. If your department's putting out an RFP or issuing out grants or even contracts, that I would love for the Equity Cabinet or departments within the cabinet to be part of that selection committee. The cybersecurity, going back to cybersecurity, there are some capital funds allocated for it on page 329. Cybersecurity and resiliency seems steady annually at $1.2 million, but core technology infrastructure is set to go from $1.5 million to $2 million in FY26. How steady are these costs, and what's behind the increase?
So Sheila can give, I don't remember exactly what expenses are in what fund or what account, but I know roughly speaking what we're doing. So there's a lot of investment, and I think, again, we have a very holistic approach to cybersecurity. For us, good stewardship and good management of our assets reduces our risk. So there's things that are in the budget that are not reflected in the cybersecurity line item, but that contribute to cybersecurity. So our ability to buy and refresh devices so we make sure that they can operate with supported operating systems, with modern applications, our investment in basic city services. So there's a lot of pieces that don't look like they're in cybersecurity. And Sheila's now giving me my...
You're talking points.
Oh, this is great. All right. So I now have the right answer for you. So things that are driving. So the first piece, which again is at the intersection of cybersecurity, but also improving our community's experience. We are starting to implement single sign-on for constituent-facing applications. And that is huge for a couple of reasons. One, it makes it easier for people to interact with us because they only have to remember one password, but it also means that we protect their data better. We protect it from attacks from other people. We reduce the risk of account takeovers, which is where a person usurps someone's identity to do something that harms them financially, which happens, it's a risk that we have. So we just kicked off the project yesterday, and that's been something that's been in the capital project for a while. And Gretchen Grossier, who's our director of identity management, is leading that. She's in the security team. And the other piece that we're doing with Capital, with VMware, and again, it's related to both security and good vendor management practices, as Councilor Weber brought up. We're anticipating the need to replace the way that we host most of our servers. So DOIT manages about 500 virtual servers. A lot of them are ours, but also for other departments and agencies. We're kind of like the hosting provider for a number of departments and agencies, including planning and others. There's some acquisitions that we have seen in the private space lead to great increases in licensing costs. Plus our equipment is coming end of life. So we are going to be replacing the tools that we use to host those servers and also do it in a way that is collaborative. So we are in conversations with BHA, with schools, and with others that also use some of those same technologies that are facing the same issues and pressures. So we're telling them about how is it that we're approaching this so that they also don't face kind of steep increases. But those are the two big things that are driving the changes. But
All right. And I know that Superintendent Skipper has pledged to improve reporting to the state on different student data. And as you may know, I'm a big champion on Cradle to Career. Have you been brought in on that at all? And where are we on the city and to go beyond the data BPS has, but to share data on, whether it's summer camps, BCYF summer camps, or maybe, when we're engaging our young people in parks and recs or youth jobs, or even with the Boston Public Health Commission, how are we, or how far are we on in collecting and pulling in all that data?
yeah, so we're work closely with BPS, and we've been very grateful to the new, I might mess up her title, but Monica Hogan, who's now overseeing both the technology side, the data and innovation practices at the schools, and obviously with the broader BPS leadership team. So we're trying to figure out ways in which we can support them. We have been, to a great extent, thanks to your support, and I think that we're keeping attention on the issue. Again, we've improved the way that we share information about addresses at the city. So we keep track of all the construction, all this stuff, so making sure that the schools have access to the authoritative and current list of addresses. We've worked and built data sharing mechanisms that preserve privacy and make sure that the kids' data and the students' information is preserved in compliance with regulatory requirements, but also just best practices. So I'm not going to say that we are at the end of the goal with being able to do all of the things that I think that we could add value, but we've made long strides in building relationships, trust, process, and that's what has helped us play a role with BPS Sundays. It's what has helped us do. So more to come, and we work closely to support Superintendent Skipper and all of the people that have really tough jobs doing big things, and we just want to make sure that it is a little bit easier for us to know, are we on the right track, are we doing the right thing, and what else can we do to make that friction that sometimes happens in City Hall go a little bit lower.
No, I appreciate all your work around that. And taking a look at, on page 328, it's project profiles. There's, most of these projects are implementation underway, or they're annual programs. There's one that says to be scheduled, and that's citywide revenue modernization. Can you speak to me on the timeline or, what's going on with that project?
Yeah, again, we've been very grateful for support from budget and from people ops. There's some personnel pieces that we wanted to put in place before we go back and look at the market. So big picture, what this is these are the tools that the city uses to collect revenue, all the way from our property taxes, excise taxes, fees and licenses. So we can't spend money if we don't get the money in the first place.
Okay.
So these are those systems, and what we wanted to do precisely to try to contain risk and cost is make sure that we have the team in place to do the work, and we are working through the process of posting the roles that we know we're going to need to drive that work. So I think that once we post the positions and we can recombobulate both our chief product officer, Jack McDonald, and our chief digital officer, Julia Gutierrez, are going to make sure that we move forward and put together the procurement to get the next iteration. Again, and it's also an interesting time because there's more, we're trying to build new kinds of applications that are more convenient, more modern, and that also is a good provocation for us to make some of these changes.
Got it. And then you might have answered this question, but the 311 modernization, what was the timeline on that again?
So there we've already delivered the first phase of the project. So we're already tracking over 50% of the calls that come through 311 into the new CRM, which is amazing. It's like we're starting, instead of doing all the work and then turning the switch at one time, we're turning little switches one at a time, but we will complete the transition from the current CRM to the new CRM by next spring, pending approval and support from the fund, from the council. And we also have a parallel stream which is the implementation of Cartograph, that again, pending support from the council, that will also happen by next spring. And with your support, we don't want to stop there, in that we're already hearing from other teams that are like, oh my God, these tools are amazing, they're very helpful. And we're having conversations about how can these tools support, to what extent can we reduce costs by bringing certain components of these applications in-house. So we hope we'll have the new CRM in place and in a position where we could decommission the old CRM by the end of this coming fiscal year. But we hope that there's a couple of other things that will both save money and get us better experience and support more employees that can happen afterward. But all of that is baked into the budget proposal that we have shared with you all.
Got it. And then we should be evaluating that CRM every, when should we revisit again?
Well, so this is by way of expressing gratitude. You enabled us, and being consistent with our new life cycle management of these big technology investments. It's not just the technology itself, but the cost that it takes to replace. So we, thanks to the council, this is one of the first procurements where we got a dispensation from the council to do a 7-year agreement with 3 one-year renewals.
Right.
So it is in a 10-year schedule.
So every 10 years.
And the good thing is, like, we already are seeing the value of the solution even 4 months in, and we're excited. It's a Boston-based company. It is called Creatio, and it is built by a really amazing woman-owned technologist that works out of downtown. So it's a great story there, too.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you to the panelists. I'm going to check with central staff to see if there's any. Nope, no one for public testimony. I want to thank my council colleagues, those who came to testify. I want to thank central staff, my team, and thank the panelists for all your hard work on moving Boston forward. And the hearing on docket number 0822 through 0830 and docket number 0844 is adjourned.